soul opportunity. And this lesson this week, I think, is really, in my humble opinion, one of the most impactful, meaningful lessons of the whole series. Just because instead of, looking at happiness, from, our perspective from lesson one, and just how, the importance, understanding the importance of having self-confidence and self-perception, have a mission and a purpose. I know David, the Cedar Bomb, and I, have, don't 100%, agree it yet. When that's okay. We can agree to disagree. But the idea behind this course is that if we're gonna presume that we do have a purpose and we have a meaning to life, and the life has inherent meaning and purpose, and we have a mission to accomplish in this world, then we have to figure out what that is, right? And so, in order to help figure out what that is, we need to learn more about ourselves. So this is like more of a introspective lesson where we have to understand, but what is who are we, who am I as a person, and how am I unique, and how can my unique attributes and characteristics and etc. help lend to helping figure out what that purpose is. So that's kind of really the idea behind lesson 3. And if I want to oversimplify it, but that all said, I know we had this exercise at the end. Did we do it together? I think we did do it together. Exercise 2.3. The page 69. That was the end of the last session. Yeah. Okay, we did it together. Okay, great. And I even actually this week, because I didn't want to come off as like a hypocrite, like it's just me. I didn't want to come off that I'm teaching this course, but I think the more with this course is like the more you work hard and really think about the answers to some of these questions, like in these exercises, the more you'll gain from the course overall, because you'll be like, wow, like I learned things about myself that I never realized were true. It's sometimes having someone else in your life to give an objective opinion as well can be helpful on that as well. I know I look forward to my wife be able to answer these questions about me as well. But anyways, so why don't we just get right to it, lesson 3. So we are on page. So the title is called Job Opening You. Let's see here. Yeah, living holistic life, in which individual selves find expression. So let's find the first source. So this first source is on page 85, and it's a lot of pace skipping. But the whole point is we want to really identify what is this mission. So this is an analogy that can really help illustrate the point that we each have unique talents and skills that we have to utilize them properly. So why don't we'll go clockwise to really get a good flow going. So Michael, why don't you get us started with text 1?
Well, as always, the wealthy businessman and his coachman arrived in a city on Friday afternoon. The rich man was settled at the best hotel in town, and the coachman was off to his 100 lodgers. Both washed and dressed for Shabbat, and then set out for the synagogues for the evening prayers. On his way to shul, the businessman came across a large wagon that had swerved off the road and was stuck in a ditch. Russian did not following lead the businessman flying down into the ditch and began pushing and pulling at the wagon together with its hapless strike. But for all his finesse at handling most challenging of business deals, when it came time to extracting a wagon and a team forces from a muddy ditch, our businessman was hopelessly out of debt. After struggling for an hour in the knee-deep mud, he succeeded only in ruining his best suit of shellac clothes, amassing a most impressive collection of cuts and bruises, and getting the wagon even more impossible embedded in the mud. Finally, he dragged his infant body to the synagogue, arriving a scant minute before the start of Shabbat. Meanwhile, the coachman arrived early to the synagogue and sat down to recite a few chapters of Psalms. Up the synagogue, found a brief of bothering paupers, and being asked for the most generous major, the coachman invited them all to share his Shabbat meal. When the synagogue section approached the Peruvian homeless, who arranged meal placements for them with the town's householders, as is customary Jewish communities, he received the same reply from all of them. Thank you, but I have already been invited for Shabbat meal. Unfortunately, my information about your order emails is a junior star. With both to believe that his dozen guests left his table with more than a shadow of a near these folks. Thus, the coachman, with his 20 years of experience in pulling wagons out of mud pole, figured out himself defeated army, while the wealthy businessman whose Shabbat meal leftovers could easily have fed every young man within a 10-mile radius, ordered about in a dish. Rabbi Joseph Yitzhak agreeable full story on its its lesson. Every soul is entrusted with a mission unique to her alone and is granted the specific aptitudes, talents, and resources necessary to excel in her ordained role. One must take care not to become one of those lost souls who wander haplessly through life, trying their hand at every field of endeavor except for what is truly an inherent their own.
Yeah. Yeah, please. Just David, just I'm sure you all are from the last class, but like we want to create as much and make it as interactive of an experience as possible. Maybe even I can pull up the share.
What is a sexton?
Uh
That's not a term I'm familiar with.
Sexton, that's the gabbai. In Hebrew that would be called the gabbai. The gabbai is the guy who who helps coordinate like the different things in the synagogue.
Okay.
I believe, yeah. With the space on the next who's next, not so looking. I don't like staying so high. So anyways, this obviously the lesson behind this story is obviously very clear, and yeah, I don't, and yeah, I'm not the to a certain extent, I'm not the biggest fan of the story because it kind of is a little bit of a downer. But the whole idea is that we each have such unique talents and skills and resources that we can use to help others and serve others. And it's a shame when we're not able to like when the guy who the businessman who was able to really help these poor people, was instead, you know, helping the guy get out of the dish, and then the roles were reversed, and when the businessman could just as easily have hired someone because he had resources, he could have thought, oh, I can hire someone to, or maybe even that same guy, I can hire him to get this out of the dish, and maybe the wagon driver could said, oh, I know the guy whose wagon I was driving, maybe he would be able to have them. He might be more fitting to be able to have them because he actually has some food to serve them. So like the whole idea is to really be able to recognize what are our unique strengths and qualities in order to be able to know what our mission is in life to be able to help others. And so that's kind of my
I have a question.
yeah, please.
So I've been thinking about that a little bit because I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I retire.
That's
Go fishing.
Yeah. So it's not a whole lot, but a little bit. But in that context and related to this story and this point, one of the things that I was thinking about is, okay, well, maybe I want to do something that I don't yet have the skills to do. So maybe I could learn those skills. I mean, I don't know what this would be yet.
yeah. So I had to learn as a child, be like so.
For all that broad terms, well, maybe I need to learn whatever I'm in tomorrow.
No, yeah, no.
So maybe the point is maybe I'm not confined to whatever I'm good at now.
No, that's a good point you're making. Did you want to add anything?
I do it. And when I had to retire young, and it was definitely about not by choice. And I found myself, well, what do I do with my time now? You know, there's only so much I could do physically. And that's how I got into gardening. I knew absolutely nothing whatsoever about gardening. And after a while, my dad was teasing me. He said, "You're the redneck from Brooklyn." Oh, and because I had this huge garden and I was able to teach other people when I was all self-taught. I really didn't know what I was doing. And so I did learn something new that I had no idea wasn't in my background.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this odd.
Yeah. So I mean, but I think I agree with what you're saying, Michael. But I would argue, maybe tell me if you agree, disagree, that you'd still want to, if you want to do something that is within your natural inborn traits and character, that you have the ability to be to excel at, as opposed to something that like totally out of left fields that like may not be able to do it, you know.
Well, yeah, but maybe he learned to excel at that more than he ever excelled at anything else. That,
No, it's because no, you're right. I guess you never, to a certain extent, you never know until you try. No, you're right. So
Or to seek your passion. It could be a little above. It could be something in the midst of the
oh yeah, right. No, also, who knows? Maybe you chose the legal profession because at the time you thought that that's what I would do, but maybe your brain is really best for artistic expression, and we had no idea. You know,
Payson, sure, just was just the story. It's just what the businessman could have done was say, "Tough. I hope you get out." But it's synagogue, and the coach would be say, "Both star."
no, I don't try. Yeah, they would try. Yeah,
They were both kind. They both. That's the moral I get out of that.
yeah, exactly. The point, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't want
They didn't perform as what they were good at.
exactly. You want to be careful with the moral of the story. Yeah, the moral of the story is not to just like ignore someone if they're stuck at the side of the road, but is to kind of think about using your skill sets the best to be able to help others. That's really it. I mean, for example, I know people that they are like a lawyer, an attorney, or very technically minded, but they also are incredible piano players, like musicians, and it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, just because I've done like work on computers my whole life, it doesn't mean that like, oh, I have to do computers my time. And maybe specifically there's that other area that you're playing, but it's really more figuring out who you are, and that is what kind of we're going to transition into. Um, we have to. So there's this story, this text two, just so you get the context in text two before we read it. And I'll read. I'll go to the next slide because especially if I was going to explain this diagram is actually just explain this concept. I think it's a concept in the secular world as well. I think it's called complexity bias. I think I'll confirm after the class, but basically, it's an idea that human nature is to make things more complicated than it actually is.
Amen.
So, like, we try to we try to think that, oh, like our life's purpose, mission is this whole complicated thing, when really, it's really not so complicated. It's not as complicated as we tried to conjure it up in our minds. So that's kind of this diagram. I kind of like this idea. It was just like we were trying to make it all complicated. It's a huge maze. Like, oh no, just go straight. Like, you know what I mean? So, oh gosh, that slide did not work well. Okay, so we're gonna have to go into this. Okay, so this we're gonna. So the background behind text two is that there was this man named, what was his name? Einbinder. Tzvi Einbinder in 1913. He lived in a small Russian village, and he had this kind of quandary. He was in his 30s, probably like more closer to my age, but he was trying to figure out, what should I do with like what's my purpose in life? And he asked his rabbi, his mentor, who was the previous Chabad Rabbi, the sixth Chabad Rabbi, Rabbi Joseph Isaac Schneerson, Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. And the answer that this rabbi gives, is very, very fascinating and very insightful into how we can really, piece our life together to really, paint a picture of ourselves and really figure out who we are. And the more we learn about who we are, the more we can really figure out what is kind of what we're meant to do with, whatever years of life we have, to live. So, maybe Diane, why don't you read text 2?
Group text 2.
Yeah.
A did English?
Yeah.
Oh, is it top here?
Yeah, text 2 on page. It should be page 8.
8. Yep.
But it's all better. But the Yiddish is very long, so it should be on the next page. Nick.
Show 88 years is a story of our lives.
Yeah.
Okay. The Story of Our Lives is a book that requires study. This book ought to be the compass for how we go about life. The story of our lives consists of 1. For reason we were created. 2. To whom we were born. 3. The place of our birth. 4. The time period of our birth. 5. The type of education and guidance we receive. 6. The environment in which we grew up. 7. Our talents. 8. Our inborn emotional disposition. 9. Our characteristics and inclinations. 10. How divine providence guided us until the day we became independent and assumed a position in life. These 10 factors from the narratives of our individual lives and these 10 factors form the narratives of our individual lives and become a book that requires study. These factors are supposed to guide which pathways we choose and how we behave, whether in interpersonal relationships or our relationship with God.
Beautiful. So this letter, he kind of points at the 10 points, 10-point methodology for really helping you determine, like, really more about who we are. So, kind of, we can go to parents. Parents is a little complicated because if you have amazing parents, you want to be more like your parents. If you had parents that, maybe weren't so great to you, maybe you want to be the opposite of the way your parents were. So the parents is interesting, because regardless of whether you perceive your parents as good or bad, they had a profound impact on you. No, I mean, primarily, especially not only genetically, obviously, because they literally form entire genome. Your entire genome is based on them, but also they had such an influence on your life. So whenever you're trying to factor in what should be your mission, if the mission or purpose in life, the parents have to be taken into account, in some way, and the trick is to really figure out what. Yeah.
I have a question. Do you believe that our souls choose the people that we're going to be born in, the family that we're going to be born into, or do you think it's just random? Like, do you think, like, in other words, like our soul? I don't know that much about the Jewish religion, so do you think that when I'm a soul up there, that my soul is, choosing based on the lessons I need to learn, maybe from a past life? I don't know if the Jewish religion believes a past life or not, but that, my soul is choosing to be born into a certain family because of the fact that there are still lessons I need to learn from like a past life.
Yeah. That's a deep question, and there's a lot to be said about that. The short answer is the soul doesn't actually choose. There's a famous quote from the Mishnah. It says, "Against your will, you come into this world, and against your will, you leave this world." So, so it's not according to the will of the soul. What it is, and then the second part of your question about reincarnation, there is an element of that. So, like, your soul is on a multi-life journey that has to be refined, and each time it comes back into the world, it's part of that refinement process. But we're not in control of which body kind of.
Do we have a soul before we're born?
So, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Really, that but it's completely abstract. It's in this treasure trove, so to speak, of souls, and then when we're born, the soul comes down into the body.
There's a bucket of souls, or
Yeah, though it's just like,
That's what I've heard too, that like when you're actually born, that's where your soul enters the body.
yeah, I mean, and then there's something to be said that Yeah, exactly. And so we don't know. Our soul is just on this journey, and we don't know. Who knows where we were in our past existence. If we were in past existence or not. Yeah.
We hear the term so much you're an old soul. Yeah, I would rather, I believe, was an old soul.
Yeah, you never know.
Not a young soul. I said your first one, my hey, wait, what?
Like the
He was an old soul.
There's a famous thing there's certain people in Jewish history that was known that they are called a neshama chadash, like a new soul. Like literally, they were a soul that came into this world that never was in this world before. But with the assumption that especially we're so late in history that it's already been how many years, like of human existence, that there's been that we've just been through a lot, like our soul's gone through a lot, and maybe many souls have already finished their entire mission and they're not coming back because they're already did their mission, did their whatever they need to accomplish. It's brought down that every soul in Judaism, at least the Jewish souls, need to accomplish all of the 613 commandments, which is an interesting concept because there's some mitzvahs that only men can do, some mitzvahs only women can do, some mitzvahs only call out priests can do, some mitzvahs you have there's there's only mitzvahs that apply to certain situations, mitzvahs that apply only in the temple standing. So in order for that to even happen, you have to live through so many different bodies and so many different eras of history. So
And then your souls, like prehistoric, yeah. I don't know if they're the same kind.
we don't know. Yeah, we don't even know exactly. There's so much we don't know.
Like, do this and that.
All I know is, all we know is the very small glimmer of what the Torah, reveals to us. But you're right, there's so much we don't know. And okay, so the place of birth, that's an interesting one because, I guess we take it for granted how much, where our upbringing was, how that played a role into shaping who we are today, especially in our younger years, like how formative. I always think the greatest analogy is like clay, like when we're young in our younger years, it's like every single thing that happens is such an impact on our lives and how like it can, form the trajectory of our lives. Um, Place of birth, so is a big point. It's like this fellow that asked this question, obviously he grew up in a Russian village in the middle of the Pale Settlement. So is a very, different than our upbringing. I grew up on the north shore of Chicago, So each upbringing, whether it's an urban environment, a rural environment, Payson, Phoenix, whatever it may be. Time period of birth is an interesting one because that's like if you're born 100 years ago, your mission in this world would be very different than your mission now because we live in a very different era that has very different needs. Um, the analogy that's that that the Rebbe brought is like, for example, in our generation, we live in a generation where everybody teaches is like a teacher. Everyone's an influencer. It used to be like if you wanted spiritual guidance, you had to go to the rabbi, the only rabbi in the entire city, right? Like Vilna, there'd be like this one great rabbi, the whole city that like everyone would go to. But like today, it's everyone's an influencer, So like everyone, if you have the ability to teach someone something, like let's say you meet someone else in the in Payson that, for whatever reason, doesn't know wants to learn more about Judaism and you have the opportunity to teach them, you could teach or about anything else for that matter. So point is that's just one example, but just to craft that idea that the time, the era in which you were born has a big impact on how you decide what to do. Education and guidance, that goes without saying, that's clear that how much a person's education has an impact. This fellow went to Chabad yeshiva, so he has a very unique thing. So like he would probably be more likely to be, like a rabbi than like someone that didn't have that education. The environment in which he grew up, that environment, that's number 6, I think, right? That's you know, growing up in Russia is very different than growing up in the United States, like for example, like how much it goes without saying. Talents, Everyone has unique. Some people are more intellectual. Some people are more into athletics. Some are more into music, the arts, um, debate, whatever it may be. There's the famous story in the times of the Mishkan that there's these women that knew how to have this very special skill. They knew how to weave. They knew how to do this weave the tapestries of the temple of the tabernacle, but it's like a very special skill that only they knew how to do. So like obviously that was in 8. And then 8 and 9, inborn emotional dispositions, characteristics, and inclinations. And that's you know that's obvious. How important that is. And then how divine providence guide us until the day we became independent and assumed a position in life. That's number 10.
I think rather than we need to read the book of our own lives, I think you need to read the book of everybody else's life to know why they are who they are. Yeah, I kind of know who I am. I mean, no, that's I know because I was born in Brooklyn and then I went to unsegregated schools. I don't hate blacks. I don't hate Puerto Rican. But if you get somebody from Alabama, his book is different. And you might not like him if you don't know his book. Yeah. If you know his book, you might be a little more often. So I know my book. I think besides that, you might disagree.
No.
But I don't know Diane or Mike's book.
No, that's, actually, you're making a very good point that this whole exercise actually can be equally valuable, if not more valuable, when you're as a way to not judge other people. Because you might see someone, let's say, committing a crime, and you might think, oh, this person's just like a terrible person. But maybe what their upbringing was and what everything that led them to that moment. What's the second goal?
Or somebody need you read it from.
Yeah, would you want to know what they're about? That are New York. Jeffrey, I think that last point, I wish you were here to hear that last point, that David made a very, very, very beautiful idea that these 10 chapters, we're calling them like chapters of the book of life, so to speak. It's not only for us to be able to analyze inwardly about ourselves, but also to use as a tool to towards other people, so that way we don't come to judge them unfavorable. Because if you knew what their upbringing was and what their life was like growing up, then you'll be much likely to more hasn't doubt on them. Yeah, you are receptive and understanding why they act in this way or that way, etc. So that was very beautiful. Wow. Okay. Let's go ahead. There's this really nice story here, but we don't have to read it. Okay. Yeah. There's this whole story about this rabbi, later in life was said, like, asked his Hasidic rabbi, like, what should I do? He's like, it's better to be a wagon driver than to be a rabbi. It's like imagine like your mentor telling you like you should be a garbage man. You'd be like, not like pursue, a higher intellectual side. It's like he's almost insulted by that. But at a certain point, like it dawned on him, like he got this offer to become a rabbi, and he had a flashback to that moment, that interaction that we had. He was told better be a wagon driver than to be a rabbi. So he declined the rabbinic position, and he went straight to the wagon driver company or whatever. I guess it'd be like the equivalent of a trucking company today. And asked for a job, and they all laughed at him because he's like this like old Hasidic rabbi-loving man. And they gave him they said, okay, fine, if you want, you can learn the ropes. And eventually he learned how to learn the ropes of being a wagon driver. And he had no clue why he was doing what he did. But then at some point he met this, as a result of being a wagon driver, he had met this Jew that was in like a very unfortunate situation. He was able to help him only because he was in that position, because he happened to be his wagon driver in that moment. So like he knew, like, wow, that was the whole reason why I had to be, I had to take this path. So it's just a very interesting thing. Anyways, that was a little tangential. Okay, exercise 3.1. In what ways, this is page 90, in what ways do these factors play a role in your personal mission as you currently conceive it? I think this would be a great exercise to at least spend a couple minutes on. How about this? If you guys do it, I will also do it. So I'll do it together. Everyone has a pen? If everyone has a pen, you can have the International Conference of Chabad Shluchim pen. I'm very proud of my, no. They really went above and beyond this conference.
We doing this silently, Bart?
Yeah, silently, yeah. We'll take 2 minutes. It's easy to like answer what's your birth location, but it's hard to figure out like, wow, how does that connect to personal mission? You married Jeffrey from first, so actually I'm still going. I'm not even halfway done. And then
It need to be done first, but doesn't mean I did it right. Hmm.
okay, the just so is just because I was kind of curious about the difference in birth location and the environment in which you grew up. The difference is that birth location is actually like where you were actually born, as opposed to your upbringing past birth, like through your adolescence and teenage and 20s and 30s. You're more, throughout your life. I guess maybe
Where you're born and where you were brought up could be two different places.
exactly that's true. That's the point. Like, and it doesn't mean like it's not necessarily as much about the specific location as much it is like the culture that surrounded that location. For example, so this person's story is he grew up in Russia, and like he was born in like a little shtetl in Russia, which is very different than his growing up where he was in America. So that was like extremely very different. For other people, it might be very similar for to say. So
Was on my grandpa.
yeah. Hmm. Wait, Jeffrey, why don't you start us up and share a couple things? And if anyone wants to keep writing, keep writing.
Let's see. My parents were very opposite. My mom was very rich. Grew up on Long Island. My pop was a very poor kid from the streets of Brooklyn.
Well, I guess, but I guess the whole point is not just to say like about your parents, but to ask how did those factors play a role into, I guess, what you conceive as your personal mission. It's a little bit of a harder question for sure. That's why I had.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, that's the hard thing. Is because also another hard thing is, well, how do we know what our personal mission is if we don't know? We have to first know the facts and then think, hey,
But I'm not sure I understand the question, is what I'm saying.
mm-hmm.
What are they trying exactly?
How does the fact that your parents grew up on Long Island, how does that play a role? Maybe you were able to relate to people more.
In your life, real, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, in your life, how did you, I'm not taking this away from him. I just, look to work, instill values. That's what my parents did for me, besides feeding him.
That's good. I like that actually. I mean,
So that sort of affects who I am today.
So it'd have to be a strong work ethic.
and for some people, it might be what not to do. Like, oh, my parents did this or that, and so therefore I learned not to do that. I learned to live a life. My mission is to help prevent that from happening to other people. Very simple. Yeah, whatever. Dan, you want to share? It looks like you're eager to share.
Oh, I don't know.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Well, my parents were loving, but their expectations were high and rigid. Birth location, Brooklyn. I grew up in a neighborhood that was quite segregated.
Was it both you in Brooklyn?
Yeah.
Did you cover did you guys discuss this already?
No.
Oh, so which part of Brooklyn? East New York. East New York. Okay. I know East New York, the street.
Lloyd Avenue, you ever hear of Lloyd Avenue where all push carts were? When I was a kid, all the Jewish vendors had their push carts and stuff. That was that, yeah.
East of
Under the L. They were under the elevated train.
East New York. Yeah, I don't know the neighborhood East New York. I know Crown Heights, Brownsville, Flatbush, East Flatbush. Is that east of all that?
Yeah, it's like Pennsylvania. I went to Thomas Jefferson High School. So this is high school to get her.
And
Madison. Now I'm in Madison. That's Flatbush, right?
Yeah, my family's from Bensonhurst.
Well, I guess all of the Brooklyn. I was actually learning so much about Brooklyn just spending the weekend in Brooklyn. It's just such a fascinating place. The size of Brooklyn is literally like larger than like most American cities. Just Brooklyn alone, like forget the whole city. It's really
April too.
yeah, I know, yeah. Yeah, such a quite, yeah. Okay, yeah, when you keep going.
okay. Arab bird hippies and protests.
Oh, interesting. Oh, you grew up in the hippie generation.
So and then education. I have prevalent to 2 master's degree. I have a master's in 60 hours. And then environment in which I grew up, had to achieve and excel. That was just always a gig. And then talents, very creative.
Do you think, I'm just kind of curious, do you think that insistence at achieving and excelling, does that have a positive, or you think it had just a negative because you kind of had to, because it's too much, it's just crushing.
Yeah.
I was like, never good enough.
I'd never felt good about myself growing up. I always felt like I was comparing myself to others. But yes, to excel and to get best grades. And I had to, and I was thought in him was as intelligent or as pretty or it's, and I just always struggled with that self-concept. Just feel like that nothing I did was really ever enough.
So, but did it create a sense to overcome that later, or did you kind of just lean into that and just kind of having that drive to try to accomplish more so you can always overcome that? Or I don't know if that question makes.
When I was growing up, I think I always felt like I had to. It was like almost like I had to always excel, get awards, do things, but it wasn't because I wanted to. It was just because I felt like that was what I got my positive reinforcement my parents were. It's like, oh, you got this award, you did this, you did that. So it was always more like driven by I had my
Personal accomplishments. It wasn't like there was never like an unconditional. You never felt that like unconditional love. It was always conditional on the state.
always what I did accomplished. And so underneath that village, that noted experience of childhood and adolescence, I struggled with OCD since second grade, with always wanting to feel my life everything up to be perfect. That I can't be, I'm not okay if everything in my life isn't perfect. Whether it's my environment, my house, my books, my clothes, so that's been for me the struggle.
Do you feel like that helped lead to both of you as a family moving out to Payson because Payson is much more of a rural town feel where people are more less judgmental and less people in Payson, I guess, I feel they're not as that everyone's to themselves more so, right? Because it's rural, everyone's like, you live your life, I live my life, and without having the feeling of judgmentalism, right? Maybe would you agree to that? Like, could that have led to have played a role into any of your decisions to move to Payson or like to a rural town like Payson?
I wanted to get away from the chaos.
And away from what? Chaos. Oh, what did I say?
Quiet life.
Yeah,
I want to get away from the heat and being so close to my dirt.
no, yeah.
I used to have the
Yeah, I think here's the thing. It's already so here's the thing. Theoretically, we could really spend like the entire hour just on this exercise. I think the ideal thing would be to really take this exercise home and maybe like star it and to really try to give it more thought and contemplate it. It's not something we're gonna like touch. We're not gonna like figure it all out in one session because that's kind of what like years and months of therapy would require. But like it's really that it's just kind of just to get the ball rolling in that area in that respect. I had to relog in because of my computer thing. So this is maybe we'll move on to the next thing for now, and then I think you should each just at home try to go back to this exercise, give it more thought, and not only write down like who your parents were and not the actual facts, but also think that what is my mission today and how could those things play a role into what my mission is today. Right? I think that'd be a way to think about it. How are we doing in time? Oh yeah, gosh, oh my gosh, time really flies. I'm so sorry guys. I get really okay, so this is he kind of in the slide does that like this divides into two characters like background and personality. But anyways, that's that. Okay. So now we're gonna go into the personality. So this is another thing to really understand more about ourselves, is to really understand what is our personality. And so it's kind of beautiful how this course does it is according to Kabbalah, there's 10 personality traits, and these 10 personality traits help help us really understand more about who we are as a person. So we'll try to do that like a little more quickly. David Cedarbaum, I think it's your turn. Text page 92, text 3. This is the 10 spherotes. So actually, you guys have this amazing diagram on page 93.
what is it, area?
Okay, so spherotes are the 10, according to Kabbalah, which is the mystical teachings of Judaism, Torah. There's 10 aspects of the soul. So the soul has really 10 aspects or character traits, you call it almost. That 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 the more you can really understand to what level you are stronger in one character trait or the other, which are spirotes, they're called spirot, and you can help us understand more about ourselves. That's kind of the idea. And you pronounce it Sephirot. Yeah. Or if you are the Ashkenaz, the Ashkenazi pronunciation will be like Sephirot. And that, yeah, right. You give you 3 different pronunciations. No, doesn't even confuse things. There you go for it.
Want me to read it?
Yeah, please.
Elijah opened his discourse with a prayer. Master of the worlds, you are one and transcend the seraphics. You are exalted above all the exalted ones, hidden from all the hidden ones. No thought can grasp you whatsoever. You are the one who brought forth 10 garments, which we call the 10 seraphim, through which to direct concealed worlds and revealed worlds.
Okay. So yeah, this is like very like a little mystical and a little abstract, but basically I want to just make it extremely practical. We brought in lesson, I think we taught this already back last week in lesson 2, that we're created in the image of God, right? It's a parallel. So one of the most simple ways of understanding what does it mean we're created in the image of God, or God doesn't have an image, right? It means that just like um we have these 10 sphere. God also has these 10 personality trait, 10 personality aspects. So it's the same thing. These 10 traits, so to speak, they're called spherot, also exist by God just as it exists by us. And so even though God is one, God is beyond this. Like for example, you and I, our essence of our soul is well beyond any personality traits. Like we are who we are. Our essence is much beyond that, but we still have the way that we can relate to others is through these personality traits called sphirot. And they're very different. So just like the analogy in the slide shows, like a woman can be both a loving mom and a wise leader. She could be a mother. She could be a wife. She could be a daughter. She could be a boss or an employee, or or whatever different roles in her life. She could be all that at the same time. That's kind of the same idea of the sphere. So yeah. So we're just gonna go through the 10 because I think it's okay. Here we go. There you go. These are the 10, and the core, obviously, of God transcends everything. But these are the 10, and we each have these 10 within us as well. Okay, is this the video? This might be the video. Let's just say. Oh, this is the video. Huh? Okay. Now I'm going to turn on this. Yeah, so unfortunately, whenever I had the audio on.
What does a painting, a piano, and the primordial hikes of creation have in common? The human eye can detect about 10 million colors, but what we are actually looking at is a tiny group of primary colors that combine in millions of variations of ratios that drench the universe in delightful and awesome visual coloring. A similar principle works for music. Innumerable melodies exist, which can be played on countless forms of instrument. But the wonder we are hearing can be stripped down to just a petite handful of primary musical notes. That's how God created the universe, with just a basic handful of spiritual elements that combine in myriads of ratios to form the splendid symphony of creation. God first created the mystical Sephirot, 10 divine channels through which is infinite light to be condensed, contracted, and then released as individual attributes that could eventually give rise to a diversity of finite creations. Let us make man in our own image, said God. No sooner said than done. Man was created in his Creator's image, with his own internal set of 10 attributes through which he operates. These 10 spiritual attributes are reflected in the physical human anatomy. Let's go through them one by one. Sephira 1. Chokmah. Chokmah is the initial seed of an idea, the flash of undeveloped inspiration. It enables us to be creative, spiritual, transcendent. Sephira 2. Bina. Bina is the development of ideas. It enables us to be logical, analytical, organized. Sephira 3. Dot. Dot allows us to focus on an idea so that it becomes relevant and personally meaningful. It enables us to be attentive, principled, involved. Sephira 4, Chesed, is the power to love, share, and look kindly upon others. It enables us to be generous, optimistic, social. Sephira 5, Gavrura, is the power of discipline and restraint. It enables us to be calculated, cautious, serious. Sephira 6, Tiferet, is the power to empathize and harmonize kindness with strictness based on the needs of others. It enables us to be balanced, empathetic, harmonious. Sephira 7, Netzach, is the power of determination to overcome challenge. It enables us to be persistent, forceful, daring. Sephira 8, Hod, is the power of humility, gratitude, and submitting to a higher cause. It enables us to be thankful, devoted, accommodating. Sephira 9, Yesod, is the power to focus on others and to build genuine relationships. It enables us to be selfless, altruistic, loyal. And last, but not at all least, Sephira 10, Melchot. Melchot has multiple functions. It is the power of speech and action, effective communication and leadership, and to be receptive to others. It enables us to be leading, communicating, achieving. So there you have it, the 10 components of the human self, the internal mechanism upon which all intellect, emotion, and actions run. God used tens of Sephirot to create his universe, and we use our 10 Sephirot to shape our miniature universes.
Okay. Well, that video did a really great job of explaining it. Does anyone have any specific questions? Because I know we're out of time, so I feel bad because we really ran out of time quick. But yeah,
You started late.
we start late. So we keep going. Yeah, we can. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I was thinking is in general, our main goal is for sure by 2 o'clock, would be a very very hard cutoff. So yeah. So these are the 10. Starting with Chachma. So you can kind of go through each of these, which is really great. On page 94, exercise 3.2a, you can kind of rate 1 to 5. Where do you think on a scale do you possess this trait? Is to what extent is this trait dominant, very dominant, somewhat weak, or very weak? So I take a second to do that, and I'll do it too.
But how do we know which one?
So
Why is he-
1 would be very weak, and 5 would be very dominant.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And we're not gonna actually go around sharing these because I'm gonna try to go through these a little quicker. But if anybody has any questions about Chachma, then please raise that hand or just shout it out. You can go through each one actually. Yeah, let's go through all. Yeah, just have them go through all of them on their own. Yeah, that'll be great. Chachma is the best way to explain Chachma. It's like that, in those cartoons, that light bulb that turns on in the head. Bina, not it one.
is purist? What does that mean?
To be a purist, that's a very good question. Like, are you very like strongly like opinionated about like, for example, like a purist would be like, I don't know, if like you're into something, then like it has to be extremely authentic. Like,
Oh, okay.
like if I'm gonna have a bottle of wine, it has to be this kind or this quality, you know.
I'd like to do this for myself and then give it to Jackie.
Yeah, no, for sure. Actually, I'm in love with a spouse, or and if you know, if you have a spouse, your spouse, or if you don't have a spouse, to have like a friend, you know, do it either for themselves or do it for each other also, because you get going out a little different. I know that's why I like. I know a lot of these. I wish my wife was the one doing this on me, and I could do it on her. Like, almost be better, but. Okay, Jeffrey getting the title of first pen down.
Saying just because I'm first doesn't mean I did it right.
Well, Jeffrey, I'm curious to know which of the traits do you feel like you had the highest scores, like more of the 4s and 5s, and which ones did you feel like you had more of the 1s and 2s?
Definitely the one I had the most 4s and 5s would be Malchut.
Interesting.
And you see the least.
There's no right or wrong answers with these. That's the fun part about this. No right or wrong answers.
The least would be na.
Which one?
Bina.
Bina? 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 Yeah. Interesting.
Don't want it to be, but
Yeah, Bina. So we'll go through each of them very briefly on in the slides, because the slides does a good job at just kind of giving like a 1 half sentence, summary of each one. Actually, maybe I'll show you while they're doing the rest. So Chachma is like I was saying, like that kind of light bulb on the head, like very instinctive, creative idea kind of person. You have that like that flash of inspiration, intuition.
Oh, wait, can you go back? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's Chachma.
That's the first one.
Yeah, Chachma is the first one. This is like the first of the intellectual attributes, which is the idea of like that flash of insight, inspiration, like the light bulb becomes like I have an idea, like an idea person, like Bina is how our intellect takes that initial flash of an idea, is able to break it down and compartmentalize it and really understand what that idea, and to make it a little more practical, a little like into actual like real ideas. And then dot is the whole idea of, if you notice in the Kabbalistic map, dot is like closer to the neck. So the whole idea is dot is what helps bring down the intellect down into the emotions. If you notice the term, the name Chabad is actually an acronym for the first 3 intellectual characteristics. So Chachma, Cha, chachma, wisdom, bina, understanding, and then dot is the acronym for the word Chabad. So that's how you know that's the word Chabad. Is the three intellectual attributes, which helps make it, internalize it, and bring our intellects, bring these intellectual ideas and make it emotionally relevant. Chesed is the beginning of the emotional attributes. So chesed is obviously giving. Giving can be good or bad. It doesn't. None of these are necessarily inherently good or bad. They're just different. Chesed could be used for good or for bad, without restraints. Just keeping constantly giving, which is a very good thing usually. Gevura is about being disciplined, strong, meticulous. Tiferes is about Tiferes. Oh gosh, I'm sorry about the slides. Tiferes is the idea of being able to blend the two. To really take Chesed and Gevura and to be able to harmonize and synchronize both energies that are seemingly opposing energies, being able to kind of balance them in a healthy, harmonious way. Like the classic analogy is like let's say you see the beggar on the street. The chesed person is going to be like, give for sure that beggar whatever he needs, even if he's going to go use it to buy drugs, let's say. The Gevura person is like, no, I'm going to be very calculated to make sure, do a full test on him to make sure that he's not going to use it for, drugs, and like make, find, like do a whole test on him to make sure he's really deserving of the money that, let's say, you're going to go. And then maybe Tiferet would be maybe say, hey, I want to give, but I also understand both sides. So maybe I'll give him like a granola bar or something. So that way, or I'll do something, to try to balance the two. Where are we? Why did I? Oh, yeah. So that's Tiferet. Netzach is determination. When the adversity, overcoming adversity. So usually we think of adversity as a bad thing, but for someone that has a very high Netzach personality, their life mission might be specifically in this area of overcoming adversity. And that's like a very, like, that grit that, I feel like only New Yorkers have, that like, feel to like overcome things that just, trudging, like in Chicago, like trudging through those like knee, like 2 feet of snow, to get to where you need to go, like that, like real determination. Hod, humility, submitted to a higher cause. I really like Hod because it's very much Hod is very much connected to like a lot of the themes we were discussing in lesson 1 about how that relates to happiness. So I think it's a very good quality to think about more and focus on. Yesod is the idea of connection and relationships. And Malchut, literally, the word Malchut literally means kingship. It's like a king, just like a king, a real king is someone that is a leader that also leads with grace, in the sense that the people want to follow him, and he's able to articulate like his decrees and everything. So that is enough. Being able to express, the whole idea is to be able to express to another person, to express ideas, to be able to take. Balchut is the idea of to be able to take all the previous emotions and to be able to express them to someone else. Let's say, for example. And so that's that. Okay, let's keep going. That was really fun. It's a great activity to do, and the main thing is to understand that we have these 10 traits. And the more we can be in tune with them, the more it can help us lead towards understanding more who we are. And the more we can understand who we are, the more we can help understand more of our purpose, which is that, I guess. Okay, implementation. Okay, so about implementation, I guess the whole idea is it's not enough to know about the traits that you have, but it's about utilizing these traits to the fullest extent possible. And to have extra enthusiasm in doing all of them. To really use them. Let's read text 4 on page 104. I think Jeffrey's turn. We have way less text than we do usually, and or it's last lesson at least. Go for it.
Rav Yosef asked of Rav Yosef's son of Rabbah, within which mitzvah was your father most careful?
Yes, this is a quote from the Talmud. Basically, the whole idea is that you think that every Jew, we all have all of the mitzvahs to do, right? So you think should all be this? Shouldn't every Jew be the same? We have the same, the Judaism. We have a code of Jewish law, right? So then we should all be the exact same. We should all do the exact same thing. Now, there's some truth. There's some things that unite all Jews in which we all share and we do together. But there's something else. There's another element that we're all unique and different. That even though we all do all of the commandments, but there's some that people excel, that people feel more passionate about more. Like some people might be more passionate about the mitzvah of learning Torah. Some people might be more like philanthropic, maybe more chesed oriented. They may be more interested in giving tzedakah, doing the mitzvah of tzedakah. Some people more the mitzvah of mezuzah or whatever mitzvah they're more into. That's because your personality is like more is pulls you in that direction. So it's showing like that's the whole idea of this quote from the Talmud, that we each have our own unique element of the Torah that we are really gravitate towards. And that's why it's so important to, like, when we learn Torah, to really find what really we gravitate to and what gets us excited. What really drives us. Okay, text 5. Michael, why don't you read text 5, page 106.
God gives a unique personality to each person. We all must pursue our mission in accordance with this personality because it comprises our portion in this world. For example, if you were more cerebral, utilize this trait for the study of Torah. Surely you will observe the other mitzvot and commit yourself to the mission shared by every Jew, but you will be extra particular and passionate about Torah study because it comports with your personality. If kindness is your personality, use this trait to love and care for others. This includes sharing the rich heritage of Judaism with Jews who never had the opportunity to learn about it. This doesn't mean that you won't study Torah or perform other mitzvot. It means that you ought to be particularly spirited about your caring for others, given the unique capacity you have for this. If you are a pragmatic person who knows how to get things done, involve yourself in starting an organization and spare no effort to get it off the ground. Alternatively, an existing institution, a school, may have a particular challenge that is inhibiting student performance. Can you solve it? Perhaps you can alleviate the plight of the poor and homeless. Surely you will also study Torah and develop emotional connections with others, but place extra focus on getting things done.
Beautiful. So, yeah, so that I think that source text really does a great job of just summarizing everything he spoke about. That it's really about really taking to heart and really helping using all the exercises we did and to really determine what is my soul and what are my personality traits most inclined towards, and using that in the service of others. It's the greatest exam healthcare. And the last text we have is from a professor named Martin Seligman, who made this, he coined this, he created this unique personality test, which I can, the link is, I have here that I can send you after the class, and you can do this more, this more, I guess, academic personality test to figure out what you're interested in. So here's, okay, Dan, why don't you read page 107, text 6.
Okay. When we find frequent ways to utilize the unique personality traits and talents God has given us, we can discover our purpose and tap into the deep and abiding happiness. Applying personal strengths. People who go to this lane have are invited to help us test new exercises. First, they take depression and happiness tests. Next, we randomly assign them to a single exercise. Two of the exercises, Walk on Well and the signature strength exercise below markedly lower depression 3 months and 6 months later. These 2 exercises also substantially increase happiness in 6 months.
Okay, wait, but just so to give context, these 2 tests that he's talking about, there's the first one he said the what went well test is kind of an exercise that this professor wants people to do, that every day, at the end of each day, to write down 3 things that went well with your day. I guess 3 things that went well. And it's not really a test, it's more of an exercise. And then the signature strength exercise is his personality test that he encourages people to take. But I'll send that link after the class so you can work on that. Okay, I need to keep reading.
Okay.
The purpose.
The purpose of the signature strengths exercise is to encourage you to own your signature strengths, to finding new and more frequent uses for them. After you have completed the test, perform the following exercise. This week, I want you to create a designated time in your schedule when you will exercise one or more of your signature strengths in a new way, either at work or at home or in leisure. Just make sure you create a clearly defined opportunity to use it.
Yeah, so according to his research, and this is like to tie it all in connection to happiness, because at the end of the day, this is a happiness course, is the whole premise, and the whole premise of this lesson, to kind of summarize it all, is that the more you can identify what your signature strengths are, and then once you're able to identify them, to make a point to utilize them throughout the day as much as you can, the happier a person will be, because then they know, then that person knows that they are living to their fullest potential because they have these strengths and they're utilizing their God-given strengths. So, and you might be surprised. So you might be a strength that you had never knew you had, and only after taking this test you realize, wow, this is, so I'm actually really excited. I haven't taken his test yet, so I'm gonna send you all the link after the class, either tonight or tomorrow, and I think it'll be a really great opportunity for everyone to do it. So now we have exercise 3.3 on page 108. Consider an area of your personality that is important to you. Question 2 is consider how you can use this at least once per day, whether in performing a ritual mitzvah or in helping others. So this is even before taking his test. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to try to jot down a couple ideas.
Let you understand the Lord.
So, well, the area of personality, that's the thing. That's the thing that's interesting, is because, like, the way the secular world's, like, the way in Judaism and Torah we categorize, like, our personalities as these 10 sefirot that we were talking about earlier. But, like, in the secular worlds, there's all these different, adjectives that you can use as, call as your personality. So you can really do either. You can either use, like, one of those 10 sefirot or one of the descriptions that accompanied them, or just anything really. Or you could even take it home as homework, and you could just give it some more thought and think about it. If anyone wants to, maybe try to share one thing that they feel that they have strength in, that they can help. It's not an easy exercise, and I think one thing this whole class, this whole lesson reminds me of. I remember I was working on a resume for a Chabad house position in California. I remember several years ago, and I remember, like, asking my rabbi, like, well, what if this is a whole waste of time? Like, what if I don't get this opportunity and it's just, like, totally wasting my time? He's like, working on a resume is never a waste of time, because you're spending time thinking about who you are and what your personality is and what are your strengths and weaknesses. And any time that you're spending time thinking about that is never a waste of time, because we it's so crucial to helping us really determine what direction we should go in terms of utilizing our strengths. So I think that's, I don't know, does anyone have anything they want to add on that? Any personal anecdotes? David, you have a, I know it's a lot. It's a lot of a lot of information to swallow and to really contemplate. But I think my personal takeaway from this is that I think this lesson is only the beginning of a journey to really help to that really requires much contemplation and work to really determine who am I, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, um, and um, and also not to mention the fact that it's okay to do things that are not your strengths as well. Sometimes it's actually a healthy thing to kind of leave your comfort zone. Let's say I'm only good at baseball. Like, it's not like you're never gonna play soccer because I'm only good at baseball. The best example is Abraham, our forefather. He was all about chesed. Abraham, so the whole idea of having guests. He was so hospitable. He loved giving. He was so giving to such an extent. And a few weeks ago, the Torah we read that he was pained. He was standing outside of his tent in pain, physical pain, by the fact that no guests were coming to his tent. It's like he had nobody to give to, and like that's like the classic chesed personality. Like nobody could give to, bothered him to the core, right? But what was the one test? Abraham had 10 tests. What was the 10th test that Abraham had? That got given was to sacrifice his son Isaac, which is literally the most opposite of chesed thing to do, to kill your son. Like literally, obviously in the end it was just a test. It didn't actually want to go ahead and do it. But but like sometimes life circumstances put us through different challenges and tests that specifically to challenge us in areas where we're not strong. And that's okay too. It's not to minimize that. But at the same time, when we do have an option of which direction to go, then in those cases to try to lean towards, in a general rule, to lean towards our strengths, and not necessarily to totally avoid at all costs our weaknesses. I think we should still confront them, but not overly emphasize them. I think it's that the way to put it. Isaac, Abraham's son Isaac, on the other hand, was Kavura. He was the opposite of Abraham personality. He was all about he is all about determination and discipline. He was his life mission was digging wells. That's this week's Torah for sure. He would just dig wells in the land of Israel to find water to help uncover the hidden springs that were deep inside the earth. I guess he almost had, it was actually interesting because he also to a certain extent had netzach, that quality of perseverance. Gvura and netzach has that has a parallel to a certain extent. Because he was so determined to keep digging wells until he finally found every single well he dig, he would not find water, or the Philistines would fill it up with the earth, until he got to this city called Rehovot, until he finally dug a well and it was flowing with water and no Philistines filled it up. So he called it Rehovot, abundance. And still today, even till today, there's this ton of Rehovot named after this place where Israel was. Anyways, I'm going on a tangent, but anyways, with that, now we're for sure done with the lesson. This has been an incredible lesson for me personally. Definitely, I hope we can all gain a lot. And there's even more to learn. There's on your own, if you'd like. There's appendix texts that we need to cover our text 7, 8A, 8B, and then additional readings. Additional readings in the back. Additional readings. So yeah. Any thoughts? Any exciting plans for the week?
More of the same.
More of the same? More unpack about yourself? Have any exciting plans?